Is the Fx6 still worth buying in 2025? In this video, I'm going to break down some of the pros, the cons, after using this camera for the last 2 years as a creative. Now, before we kick into my pros and cons, I just want to outline my use with this camera and see if it's the same as what you're going to be using it for. So I jumped into the Sony ecosystem with the a7 III, then moved to the a7S III, and that was my main camera body. Then I bought a7 IV, and then I started working for an agency, creating higher end production pieces. And that is when this baby came into my life. I thought it's time to level up, I'm getting paid more, I'm working on bigger shoots, and this could be the next progression. So I picked up my Fx6. Over the last few years, it has been by my side on pretty much every shoot I've ever done. For me, that was where the world I was living in. I was working in the higher production, corporate videos, working for an agency, and this was my baby. If you're new here, hi, my name's Dave. I'm a freelance creator based in New Zealand. I've been creating for full time for the last 8 years. I was a high school teacher, quit my job, and now I do this for a living. The first thing I need to rave about, it was like the most noticeable thing when I got this camera, was the ergonomics. It's the way that the handles are set up, the way it feels in your hands when you're holding it. It is nice. It's big, it's chunky compared to the smaller mirrorless bodies, but that can be a big pro for some people. I like the way it feels in your hand. I love the top handle, which a lot of people hate. That's another whole story in itself. The side handle's unreal. There's so many little buttons that you can press that you can all customize, which the way it's set up and the way it feels in the hand is pretty nice. You can't go too far without talking about the internal ND on this bad boy. It is like the main reason most people talk about this compared to the FX3. It works super well. It is game changer. You can go inside, you can go outside, and just with a little scroll, you can adjust your ND to a T to make sure your exposure is nailed. I've had problems with NDs in the past where they are like giving me weird looks on my image, or they're giving me a random purple or random things going on. I still have that with some of the NDs that I play with on my other mirrorless cameras. That's why this is super clutch, because it's all internal and it looks good no matter how you use the ND. My next big pro for this camera is just perception. Now it's the elephant in the room, but like this thing's chunky, and when you bring it, this is not even rigged up yet, it's like in its minimal form, but when you bring it to a shoot, you just look more professional. You look like you should charge more. You look like you know what you're doing, and it looks like a big TV camera. Some people are like, oh, am I going to be on TV all the time when I use this? As opposed to the smaller mirrorless bodies like I'm filming on right now, you look like you're about to take photos. You look less professional. And I know that's like, might not want to hear that. And when you get to a certain point in your career, you just don't care about that anymore. And you're like, I don't care, it's a tool. But on these corporate based shoots, especially when you're working for an agency or with agencies, they like rocking up and looking like, oh, hey, look at this big boy. The perception does alter things when you're thinking about your relationships with your clients. Other things I need to mention are obviously battery life, depending on how you rock it. I've got some V mounts, but it just like lasts forever. This side around here, which I'll do some close-up shots of, is just, there is so much customization on this side alone, and it takes a while to get used to, but once you dial it in, it's you can just do so much with this camera just with this little side panel here. One thing I really hated about this camera when I first got it was the lack of auto white balance. Now, every other camera, you can just flick that on and run around and Bob's your uncle. When you get to a certain production level and you notice that and you're very particular about your white balance, that really matters. So when I jumped to higher end stuff, it was fine because I was being very dialed in with my white balances. But at first I was like, oh man, I'm going to a room and it's got a weird cast in it. And sometimes you're confused about how to fix that. I've since got some apps on my phone that I highly recommend that really help steer the ship with that. But it took a while to get used to. The top handle, love it or hate it, is awesome because it does have the XLR inputs and you can manage so much audio with just this top handle. It's been pretty clutch. Now I have another love-hate relationship with the stock monitor. Like, it's small and portable and part of me kind of loves it. And for some shoots lately, I've only been using that. But I now have, well, I've always had another monitor that I sometimes chuck on the top or off to the side, and I can move this around because sometimes the brightness isn't there or you really want to know what your image is going to look like. And it's nice to have, like, I've got a small HD 502 Cine, something like that. Expensive ass monitor, but it looks way better than what you can see on this bad boy. It still was pretty cool though. Now let's get into some of the cons or some of the things that can be frustrating about this camera. And the first one is the size. It is a big pro and I rave about how it feels, but at the same time, it can be too much sometimes. Now I've talked about this in some of my freelance vlogs in the past, but I've gone to some small run and gun events and it's a small, quite tight, compact space. And I've been halfway through the shoot and I've realized this is too much camera for what I need right now. Like, I want to shoot with this all the time because it's fun, but often it was the wrong camera for the job. Next thing is probably the cost. This is more expensive than your Fx6s or your A7 IVs, so it is something to keep in mind because it is a step up. And for some people say, oh, it's just an Fx3 with a variable ND. Well, yes and no. Like, I would say yes and no. There's a lot more obviously that you can do with this camera, and I've already talked about a few positives throughout this video, but the cost of it is a factor. Now this last con is actually kind of massive. It's changed the whole way that I shoot, and that is stabilization. I've gone from the GH5, which was like, you could literally walk down the street and it was like a gimbal. It was insane, to an A7 III, which had a bit of stabilization, but it was even hard to shoot with compared to the GH5. Then finally progressed through the other Sony cameras and gotten pretty comfortable with their stabilization. Then I went to this, which has nothing. It has no stabilization. If you have it in your lens, then sure, but I don't think I have it on any of my lenses. I only really noticed this for the first time when I was on a wedding and I was shooting on a 7200 at the time, which I don't have anymore, but at the time that has stabilization built into it. So I was shooting handheld and I've been struggling all day. That was my first ever wedding, shooting with an Fx6. And then I got to the end of the evening, threw on the 7200 and I was like, oh, this is looking smoother. Like, this is looking good. Then I realized, oh, it has stabilization in the lens. So I noticed it and it was definitely making a big difference. But my shooting style has completely changed. I'm way more locked off with my shots. I know what I can get away with and what I can't get away with on certain shoots, but I like my shots pretty stable. So I have just bought one of those like sack things. I'm gonna give that a try. I've never used it on a shoot just yet, but I'm either locked off, handheld, which I can do pretty well now, or I've played with an easy rig. Don't like it. I just don't like it. It's too much for most shoots. And some of the results I see with it aren't even that good anyway, but maybe I was using it wrong. Let me know in the comments below what you use, or if you're going to use this camera, how are you thinking about stabilizing the footage? Maybe you've got heaps of good Sony glass, but that's a big factor. Now I found this paired really well with all of my other cameras, so that's what I really love about it. I got used to the S-Log3 footage and how to grade it, and then I can do it on this camera, I can do it on all my other cameras. It's been very seamless. Now the way I grade it is with LUTs and power grades and all of that good stuff. There'll be a link below maybe for those as well. But I find it super easy to play with. You get super comfy with the footage. And if you're jumping from like the likes of an A7S III or Fx3, you'll be fine, no problems at all. But I've got to mention this. This is the Danny Gewertz effect. I might be saying his name wrong, but he is an amazing filmmaker. You probably already know about him, but recently he's picked up an Fx6. He probably got given one. And he started making videos using the Fx6. This has A, brought more people to be aware of how good it is, but B, made me realize, oh man, like you can do so much still with this camera in 2025 and beyond. There are things like lenses, lighting, storytelling, editing, all of that good stuff. They can level up like crazy, and this camera will help you get to a really high level. It's amazing. Now, some online creators talk about rental opportunities, and like for me, hasn't been a thing. The last couple of years I've had this, I don't think I've rented it out once, and I don't charge my clients for bringing this camera to a shoot. That's just not the way I quote. It's not the way I price here in New Zealand. And most of the people I know in this country don't do that either. Seems to be really common in America and maybe Europe as well. But I don't charge people for, it's just all factored into my day rate. But the big question is, in 2025, is this camera still worth picking up? And I'd say it depends. It depends on how you shoot, what you shoot, your style, and where your career is progressing. If you're starting out and this is going to be your first camera, I'd probably say no. I'd say pick up like an A7 IV or something, and that'll really get you started, get you used to Sony and all of that good stuff. But if you've been in this a while, you're taking it professionally, or you just want to level up from like the likes of the Fx3, I think it's a nice step up from something like that. hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from my few years enjoying this camera. Have a good day. Talk soon.